Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. We are live, and we're going to be taking a look at some items today with regards to what's happening in LA. There is so much that is going down, so much that is happening, and we are at some point going to be taking call ins from you guys who have been watching, who are faithful, and ultimately, we're going to be doing some of that later on in the broadcast. We're going to be taking a look at some of these clips with everything that's going down. There is so much happening in the news, and we're going to try to make sense of all of it within this podcast. So, otherwise, if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any chats that you guys want to put out there, please drop it in the chat and let's get the show on the road. Otherwise, everything is going to be quite interesting to look at, to see how everything is unfolding, because there is so much chaos that is happening in this world, and there's a lot of insane things just going down, and we just need to make sense of all of it. So otherwise, if you guys are just joining, thanks so much for being here. We're going to be doing some coverage of this uh, of this news really that's going on with all of the border stuff, not the border stuff, but a lot of the protests, the riots, and the things that are happening in LA, Riverside. There is just so much happening here. So otherwise, once we get to these clips, we'll start to just comment on this stuff. We'll start to just think about everything that is going on. And otherwise, at the end of the stream, we'll be taking some call ins, and we'll give a couple minutes for each of you guys to share your thoughts on the topic. Of course, we want to stay on topic. We don't want to go on different topics and on different tangents. Otherwise, we will keep the discussion to a minimum so that we can let other callers in and chat. Otherwise, let's get into the story, the news cycle here. So, everything that's been going down here as of late, there is a lot of riots and protests happening right now, and it's so unfortunate to see some of the violence that is going on and the things that are just being done. And I understand the frustration. I understand the emotions that might be going through. Some of these people. Again, these are people that are, going through something personally, and ultimately, I think we need to uh, really see everything through the lens of both parties. And so, otherwise, let's take a look at some of these videos. So this is on mute. What you're looking at is footage from LA. There is just so much information going on. I'll let you in on some of the audio here because there's just a lot going down.
Getting outside of that perimeter that law enforcement has set for them.
Have you felt what it feels like to be in the cloud of something like this OC spray?
Yeah, I mean, every police officer that goes through the academy is going to experience that, and it's unpleasant. I've had it sprayed accidentally on myself, and it will shut you down for momentarily. You're just your eyes you can't see. It's irritating your skin. It burns your skin, and not only is it a deterrent from seeing that cloud of smoke, if you will, but once you get this on you, it's very hard to get off, and it basically has to wear off, Austin. So it's going to deter these folks. No one wants to get sprayed with this, trust me.
Lots of people we saw earlier in the day, they had cartons of milk and they were dousing themselves in the milk. Is that a widely known thing, that the milk helps to clear your eyes out better than anything else?
It is absolutely the key. If you're sprayed or you're affected by this spray, milk will lessen that sting, if you will, but it will quickly, obviously clear up your eyes so you can at least see again. We see that periodically on traffic stops or calls where OC sprays utilized, and the fire department will arrive and they'll actually have milk to help wash that irritant off the skin and eyes of whoever was sprayed. So, yeah, I mean, the protesters, they're pretty well equipped from what I see. They're thinking ahead of the game in terms of this OC spray. So, they brought their milk to help people that were sprayed.
So, this is, from what it appears to me, we've been watching this exact street for, as I said, we've been watching it since basically noon Pacific time. We're hours and hours into this. We're still seeing the OC spray being deployed. It did look like, I don't know if you caught it, it did look like we saw a number of protesters jogging away from the scene.
So many of
after
you guys
this
are joining
parade.
in right now. What are you guys? Are any of you guys close to this
Ultimately, what we're watching
information, or rather, close to the cities of LA or Riverside where these things are happening? Are you? Have you guys gone to any of these protests, the anti-ICE protests going on? What if you did? What was your experience there? What was happening? Because a lot of this is so chaotic from the news coverage that we're seeing, and we're just we're just looking at all this information here just to kind of make sense of it all. And obviously, this is a protest against ICE, and the stories are is that ICE is going in and they are deporting many
We want
people.
to keep pushing folks back and keep them contained. And as these folks get tired, they'll start leaving the scene, best case scenario. And once it gets down to a manageable point, which is a couple dozen people, that's when the police will say, "Hey, it's contained, it's over." The people have dispersed. But I got to tell you, Austin, we've watched this for some time now. It doesn't look like they're leaving.
Does the timing of this work against the officers' favor? It is a Saturday. People are not working today. They're not working tomorrow. Oftentimes, when we see these types of protests, Fridays and Saturdays tend to be the days where they get, a little bit more rambunctious. Is that true?
It really is. And, keep in
It's
mind
because
that
people don't have
some of these
work.
folks are out there. And Austin, it's not us versus them. I mean, there's some people that really believe
So
that
Brad
they're
Wilson, you
fair
say,
and just and
yes, tried and
honest.
true,
So,
bully and intimidate the citizens that are sick of being bullied and intimidated to make them stop technique, followed by the equally useful, find one or two examples of something and convince people it's happening everywhere technique, because I'm sure that will solve this. Is that with regards to, you're talking about with the media and the sort of media coverage of this? Is that what you're mentioning, Brad? Say, I got to go to bed now. Are you ever going to do more call-in streams? Because I would love to chat for a bit. Yes, I will. I will. This is the first night that I'm actually doing call-ins. It will be later in the night, so unfortunately, I am starting the stream quite late. But otherwise, yeah, on the days that I do earlier streams, for sure. This is all just kind of on the fly, sort of
What are your
timing.
thoughts right now?
All the while I have some of the
As we've been
items
watching
that I
this
want to talk
unfold,
about.
and
But yeah,
it's different
for sure, we'll have more
from
call-ins. This is the first stream on that. So otherwise, if you stick around, we'll have a time to do that just
like the one we've been
just before the stream ends. So I'm going about 45 minutes, give or take. We're just taking a look at all the coverage, and then we're going to be talking and discussing all this stuff. So I'm just going to skip past that. But otherwise, thanks for joining, Brad. Would love to talk and hear your thoughts. So as we get on to another new news cycle here, I know we're getting a lot of Fox News cycle coverage, and we're just trying to get some information here with everything that's going down, because of course, the news is going to be covering this stuff quite heavily, because this is just a heavy subject to talk about. And it seems to be ramping up more and more and more as we get deeper into the administration, the Trump administration, because this is something that he is, and people agree and people disagree. This is something that he was campaigning on, with keeping our country safe by closing down borders and so on and so forth. You say it's in regards to ICE, unfortunately, because the boys in Washington have been saying crazy things right now. Yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on some of that stuff and what you think, what you're hearing, what you're seeing. All right, word, brother. I'll be back, everybody. All right, have a good night. It is quite late, so I understand. But otherwise, thanks so much for being here. Yeah, so there is so much going down, and we're just kind of listening. Some of this information I'm kind of hearing with the news cycle is saying, because like we got to really pick what they're saying and seeing the try to figure out what the truth is in all of this, right? Because we know that there are laws in place in this country, and we know that there's people that have certain perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that we understand what's going on, what the situation is.
Outside a Home Depot. It is still unconfirmed whether immigration officials were conducting an ICE raid, but several ICE vehicles have sustained damages, and multiple protesters have now been arrested for an assault on a federal agent. This incident follows a night of riots in Los Angeles following multiple ICE raids in the city. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Concha, along with Lydia Hu. Alicia Acuna.
The real question is how long will this go on for? Because I'm not sure if this is actually still happening at this hour.
In Los Angeles.
It's possible.
45 people were arrested last night, while DHS says
Does anybody
that
have
more
any
than
information on that?
118 illegals were apprehended this week. The protester tried to storm into an ICE facility last night after being fired upon by radical speakers at a rally. Listen.
Free them all! Free them all! Free them all! Because an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us! And Los Angeles does not back down for that kind of fight!
Continue fighting until we reconstruct every single institution from the ground up so that we can grant full amnesty for all immigrants. Demand full compensation for all of the victims of this criminal injustice system.
What's going to change this is organizing, and not just any type of organizing, militant organizing.
Okay, that's kind of radical speak there, militant organizing. I mean, we're talking about a sort of civil war happening. I mean, I don't know if, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Militant organizing, bring this place down and restart it up again. You say, I'm surprised no cars drove into the police. These people are insane. Yeah, I mean, that's true. In some cases, that's what would happen. Or the other extreme where somebody would run a car into the, it's hard to even just say that because you don't want to give anybody ideas.
Incredibly, Mayor Karen Bass is still standing with the protesters, saying she's fighting for all Angelenos regardless of immigration status, and doubling down that LA is a city of migrants, leaving out the illegal part. But the people on the side, as Karen Bass, are threatening ICE agents, spray painting death to ICE on dumpsters.
That is
Gavin
wild.
Newsom also weighing in on the riots and blamed them on, get this, President Trump, accusing him of tearing families apart. And this chaos has now spread to New York City today alone as protesters organized in Lower Manhattan. Joining us to break down everything in terms of these protests is border czar Tom Homan. Tom, how is ICE responding to these protests? And thanks for joining us.
Where is Gavin Newsom in all of this? Has he, he's commented, but like, where is he going to at least step out into the public? He's not going to, because it's probably not going to be safe for him. Maybe. But come on, I think we need it. We know for sure that he's not some kind of leader that is going to do anything with regards to this. And Mayor Karen Bass, come on, she's probably vacationing somewhere.
Look, we're going to continue doing our job. And yesterday we got 118 arrests. I was out here yesterday to kick off this operation. And what people aren't talking about.
You say, did you hear about the militia members here in Michigan that were entrapped to kidnap our governor? No, I didn't actually. I did not hear about that. I have to look that up. That's kind of wild.
Well, as I served, several warrants yesterday. These were criminal warrants. This is a criminal investigation. And today we're continuing operations. They're not going to shut us down. We're out there right now doing operations. We're going to keep doing operations. We brought in more resources to push back the protesters, but I'll say it again, a serious warning.
Juan Carlos, was this recent?
You got your First Amendment rights.
How recent was
this?
Cross
that line of impediment, or you putting hands on officers or destroy property, you will be prosecuted. There's zero tolerance on crossing that lines, and that's what we're standing by. We're bringing more resources as we speak. We'll have more resources tonight. We're going to continue doing the job that American people voted Donald Trump in office to do, and we're not going to apologize for doing it.
Tom, it's Alicia Acuna. Again, thank you so much for being here. During the protest yesterday, a Los Angeles City Council member called for mobilization against ICE. Listen.
What if your next leave?
Yeah, so, so much is going down. There's so much information here, but otherwise, what do you guys make of all of this stuff? Because we are really seeing so much information happening. And thanks so much for being here. If you guys are just joining in, later in the stream, we will be doing some call-ins and we'll be talking about this subject. But otherwise, there's so much going down today in some of these places like Paramount, Riverside, LA. There is just a lot of happening and people saying death to ICE. People are doing anti-raid protests. You say 2020 in response to her lockdowns. Got it. Yeah, that was quite a while ago, but no, I have to look into that because I didn't know. I don't know about that stuff. And 2020, my mind was somewhere else. I'll say that much. But otherwise, yeah, quite interesting. So let's take a look at.
Has slowed them down before, and if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we gotta show up even stronger.
So, Tom, will the Trump administration take action against these public officials who are threatening ICE agents with resistance?
Absolutely. And I think Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice are looking at that. And, like I said many times, these elected officials or these non-government organizations, they can't cross the line either. I mean, we got people like, Hakeem Jeffries saying he's going to dox ICE employees, ICE agents out there with masks on. They're wearing masks to protect themselves and their families because they've been doxxed, their family's been doxxed, their life's been threatened, their families have been threatened. I know myself, I had over 1,000 protesters at my house. I expect that as the borders are, but these men and women are putting their lives online every day. They arrested a lot of bad people yesterday and today. They arrested child sex offenders. They arrested people convicted of robbery. They arrested public safety, not only significant public safety threats, but national security threats. They arrested gang members.
So that's the thing I don't understand is when people do protests in the name of something, why does there need to be violence? Like, violence doesn't need to happen. That doesn't show anybody anything, really. It just shows that you're just proving a point that you should not be in a country where you are committing violence, you are doing things that you shouldn't be doing, that are illegal. So it's not helping your case.
And some of the funds going to cartels in Mexico and Colombia that fund their operations of sending narcotics to this country, killing American people.
So you say, Emmanuel, I'm from South Africa, Durban. I really support Mr. Trump, but we have to agree that there will be a negative side of it. This is just fiction, said Klaus Schwab. Yeah, there's always going to be some sort of motive and trying to. So many stories are going to be coming out of this, and we're going to see social media putting out a message. We're going to see mainstream media putting out a message. We're going to be seeing right-wing media put out a message. There's going to be so much information, but should we have wisdom to understand everything at, the matter at hand, we should be able to really look at this stuff and analyze it and see exactly what the truth is. So in this sense, find the lie, catch the lie. Where's the lie?
Understand the threat that our ICE agents are facing by just doing their job, why they need to wear these masks, and also what actions need to be taken against Democrats who are demanding that they be unmasked, and what would happen if they do dox them and publish their identities.
Look, it's incredible. We're at a place where the guys, the men and women who enforce law, they're the bad guys, and the ones who break the law are the victims. You kidding me? How come they didn't say anything about BLM? They're out there. They were a mask. How about the protesters, all the college campuses? They were protesting against Israel and the Jewish students. They were wearing masks. I didn't hear a word about that for these protesters wearing masks. But ICE agents are wearing masks for one reason, because the assault on ICE officers is up over 400%. The assault on ICE officers. They're being doxxed across the country. And their families are being attacked. Their families are being doxxed. Their families are being threatened. And I certainly understand it. I have a lot of death threats. I've been doxxed. My family's been doxxed. I understand it. But they're wearing masks for one reason only: protect themselves and their families. They're doing a dangerous job. This is already a dangerous job. They got to wear a gun. They got to wear a Kevlar vest every day because they're doing a dangerous job every day. While the rest of these people, like Hakeem Jeffries, is sleeping in his bed at night at 3 a.m., nice and comfortably and safe, there's men and women of ICE on the street doing surveillance on significant public safety threats. Really bad characters and national security threats. They're taking it on every day. The men and women in Border Patrol standing on a dirt trail every night at 3 a.m. taking on the bad guy. So this is another threat against ICE agents, and we're asking the Department of Justice to look at these statements and see if there's something we can do. When do you cross that line on threatening ICE officers? And here's the problem. You got all these people now attacking ICE. You saw they're writing death to ICE agents. ICE agents been threatened. Their families been threatened. And you got members of Congress You got some judges out there that compare ICE to the KKK, ICE to the Nazis. You got city council people saying ICE are terrorists. They're feeding the hatred. And here's my concern. I've been doing this a long time. It's a matter of time before ICE takes a life or an ICE agent loses their life because the rhetoric is at an all-time high and is being fed by people who should be more responsible, elected officials especially, who keep firing up this rhetoric.
Yeah, you're right. You say who brings kids to protests, but I mean, that is true. I mean, I honestly I don't understand why anybody would bring kids to a protest. Really, it's kind of wild.
Yesterday, that Kilmar Garcia, another now familiar name in this whole.
By the way, did you guys hear what happened with this, with Kilmar Garcia? There is kind of wild information that they just, that became public with regards to this guy. He was a part of a huge, massive I think it's child trafficking or human trafficking. Let's see if they mention it right here. Kind of wild.
Wider drama has actually been brought back to the United States after being deported to El Salvador. Here she is detailing his alleged crimes.
Yeah.
Modern.
So basically what they did was they brought him back into the United States. Let me skip that. Okay, so let's just let Pam Bondi.
Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled. This defendant trafficked firearms and narcotics throughout our country.
And Tom, in spite of these details, some Democrats are still on the bandwagon here, it seems. Watch this.
The Trump administration and all his cronies who should apologize to the country for putting us through this unnecessary situation, and to Abrego Garcia for putting him through this situation.
Otherwise, he has a status which is withhold deportation.
Now they're trying to act like he's some kind of drug lord or human trafficker.
So, Tom, I posted this image on X yesterday showing how some in the liberal media just insist on calling him the Maryland man or the Maryland father. There's a big exception there on your screen, which is Fox News. And as you just heard in that montage, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, the biggest cheerleader for this man in Congress, went on national television, if CNN qualifies, and said that the President of the United States should apologize to Kilmar Garcia. What's your reaction to that?
Van Hollen's an embarrassment to the halls of Congress. He went over and collared an MS-13 gang member, a designated terrorist, a wife beater, and a public safety threat. And as we continue to do the investigation, now he's a human trafficker who traffic not just guns and weapons, but people, trafficking of women and children. So he's going to pay. We're going to prosecute him. So we're bringing him back here to prosecute him. We're bringing him back here to put him in prison. Then when he's done in prison, guess what? He'll be deported immediately again. Did any of these people ever meet with Angel, mom and dad? Van Hollen had a young mother with 5 children murdered by an illegal alien. Did he ever meet with them? Did he ever meet with the victims, the hundreds of victims of illegal alien crime? No. He's an embarrassment to the halls of Congress. He's an embarrassment to the position he holds. President Trump don't owe anybody an apology. President Trump in 7 weeks gave us the most secure border in the history of this nation. President Trump is arresting thousands of public safety threats in this country every day. President Trump is making this country safe again, one illegal alien criminal at a time. And like I said, despite what's going on in L.A., I'm here now. We're continuing operations today. We're going to do this job every single day. We won't be stopped. President Trump is a game changer. I worked for 6 presidents starting with Ronald Reagan. When it comes to national security, border security, immigration enforcement, public safety, no one has done better than President Trump. His success is unprecedented, not only on the border, but in taking national security threats and illegal alien public safety threats out of this nation. I wake up every day proud to work for President Trump, and we're going to keep doing the job that he promised the American people he would do, and the American people voted for him to do. We're going to keep his promise to American people, no apologies.
And the numbers prove that, Tom. We see that border crossings are down more than 95% without 1 inch of the wall being built as the big, beautiful bill goes through Congress. Rhetoric alone is keeping people coming into this country, and obviously the job you're doing in terms of deportations. We thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Tom Homan.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Yeah, so some of that stuff, the information that we've got so far, you say, I hear you, brother, we're all being led by politicians. Always remember this is this. For every protest, there's someone behind offering them money to go and protest. People get paid for causing chaos. It is true in many respects that what you're saying, and there are people that like to just cause, disruption. And are they getting paid? I mean, I don't know. This is all stuff that we just don't know because a lot of this stuff is behind the scenes. Say if we protest is paid, then who paid the J6 marauders? There's stories about people that are, the Antifa group that went there. We know that Antifa has been meddling in a lot of protests or riots or whatever, where they seem to really amplify things to a higher level. And when chaos ensues, more people start to follow that bandwagon per se, and they start to cause more chaos. But it's really tough to just pinpoint it down because we just don't know. We just don't know. And we can speculate, but there's never a definitive answer. So someone says, what a joke. You say, so no one can really be grieved. No one could really be grieved about what their government is doing without someone paying. Ridiculous. There is so much happening with what is going down, and ultimately there's a side of people who voted for Trump in order for this type of thing to happen, but there's people that are saying, well, we didn't expect it to happen in this manner, or maybe they had a different idea of how it would happen, or whatever the case. Other countries are making fun of us. It's the same thing with other countries too. If you go to another country and you're doing things obviously illegally, they will kick you out. They will not allow you to stay there. And some may arrest you, and you'll be held in their prisons for speaking ill. And it's interesting that Charlie Kirk went and did some debates in Oxford over there in the UK, and there's a lot of things that he said, even on Talk the News, their popular news show that they have going on there. There's things that he said that most certainly would get any other citizen, any European or Great Britain citizen, arrested. And there was actually a case of a woman who got arrested because of some of the tweets that she said with regards to illegal immigrants, where she actually said some violent things, I guess, but then she retracted those and deleted those tweets and apologized, yet they still arrested her, and she's now facing 2 years in prison for that. They say the fog keeping their court dates, not doing things illegally. They were doing things legally and going through the process. So if we were to hold to what we ultimately stand for in the sort of American mindset, where if we're a citizen of America and we want to keep the citizens of America safe, we want to make sure that the law is upheld, of course, and we want to make sure that we are doing things in the just manner, in a right manner. And to some people, it's it's like give or take. Some people have different ideas and different thoughts about what that looks like. And to a comment about, let's see here. Let's see if I can find it. People were keeping their court dates, and that's how ICE knew to stand out there. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then I mean that makes sense. A lot of these protests are in regards to the anti-raid. If that's the case, then that would sort of make sense to this. I'm not really sure. I have to do some more research into this. I didn't know there was court dates. People having court dates. And today, I don't know if they schedule them well, I mean, we're already in Sunday, but otherwise it says anyone could put on a mask and grab your loved ones off the streets claiming to be ICE where there are no badges, no identification at all. That is also very true. It's a speculation, but it could also be the case, and only to be putting out some sort of message out there that ICE is going to get you. I mean, really, we just don't know what exactly is happening. But otherwise, I think there was a comment with regards to the administration deporting non-expired visa citizens, and so far, just through some research, that there's no evidence exactly available with regards to the fact that the Trump administration has deported individuals with non-expired visas. But there is instances with enforcements that have been made with kids or college students that are protesting against Israel and in the stance of free Palestine and shouting violent chants like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and so on and so forth. These chants is really the eradication of the Jewish nation in order for Palestinians to live there, and because as they say it, Israel is the occupier of the land. But the reality is, what we know from history is that God gave them this land, and they won it by, obviously, through war. When you take territory through war, you keep that territory, right? Because you claim that territory. And this is just standard practice with war. This is how humanity has been since the very beginning. You take land, that becomes yours. You purchase land, that becomes yours. And, land can be acquired in both ways. You purchase land or you take it by force, in the sense of, because of war. And it's not necessarily because, you take it like force, take it by force, like maybe in the instance of Putin saying that he deserves a part of this land of Ukraine because it's always been Russia, part of the Russian Soviet Union or whatever, right? And he goes and he tries to take it by force. There's that aspect, or there's the aspect of nations already being at war because of whatever reason, right? And then they end up acquiring land as they go, right? And securing that with soldiers. And then they eventually, during peace treaties or ceasefires or talks, they say, okay, what we acquired, we're going to keep this. You say you call it war, that's an onslaught. That I'm not calling this war, if that's what you're thinking. I'm just kind of giving some ideas here with just tying all this together and understanding it all. You say it's a shooting gallery. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Robert? You say no group should be immune from criticism. What's the L take on that? What do you mean exactly? Elaborate a little bit more. What am I calling war? If maybe you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to communicate here. I'm just the conversation shifted a little bit from what we were talking about with what's going on in LA, but I did mention Israel. That it's late in the hour, so I'm just trying to catch up with what my brain is sort of what's going on in both places and what's happening. So with the visas happening, or with the visas being revoked, is that these students are doing violent protests and they're on school visas. So what they do is they end up revoking their visas because these are things you just can't do. When you're on a visa, you have limitations. You're not a citizen, so you don't get tried as a citizen. You get the visa revoked. You're even if you're a green card holder, you can't. You have to follow the laws that are set into place, the rules and the regulations within these documents that you are to hold, because otherwise they can be revoked because you're not a citizen yet, right? So these are the things that we have to be careful with. We have to understand that from what the media is telling you, that they're taking away visas, or like in the case of the Maryland man, right? Kilmar Garcia, who turns out through the investigation and the public information that is put out there, where turns out he's actually a gang member of the MS-13 because of his tattoos on his hand, right? And then not only that, we have the instances of people defending a man who beat his wife, beat his kids, and is also involved in trafficking. Wild. So you say it's called illegal immigration. The first word in the statement is illegal. I don't get what's so hard to understand about this. Yeah, so that's essentially it. What the U.S. is doing, what the Trump administration is doing, is they are upholding the law as they promised that they would.
The President of the United States was awake last night, concerned about our law enforcement officers. Pete Hegseth was involved. Everybody was there. What can we do to bring peace? What can we do to bring stability? What do we do when we have guys like Hakeem Jeffries standing up in front of the world and saying it's okay to kill ICE. It's okay to throw things at law enforcement officers. It's okay to do that. That's not okay. Not in America.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also you say those people were following the law. They were keeping their court dates. Look, if that's true, I mean, come on. That's actually wild. Why would in a sort of, I hate to say perfect world, but in a world where we follow the laws and people are trying to follow the law and do things the correct way, of course, we would want to give them the ability to do so. If that's the case, absolutely wrong. But is there any truth to that? Right? How are they upholding the law when they are breaking into the process of immigration? The people are keeping their court dates trying to, so yeah, I just commented about that. So it's a double-edged sword though. And I'm not talking about gang members. I'm talking about people who were never charged with anything and they are here legally. So again, just through some research, you say that's the great thing to do. Deporting people who criticize another country because Netanyahu wants you to. Yeah, there's so much stuff about that and what Netanyahu's doing, and I forget, somebody, I think one of our usuals that comes into the stream mentioned something about Netanyahu funding ISIS. How true that is, I don't know. I have to do more research on that and see exactly what that is. And ultimately, I do know from what we're seeing here is that he's obviously protecting his citizens in the way that he should. And there's so much. Look, I'm not trying to sit here and stand and say I'm defending what the Israeli government is doing. I'm trying to say is that Israel has the right to exist in their own land because that is the land that is given to them according to our scriptures and what we see. Say, why shouldn't Americans be able to say we don't like the G going on in Gaza? Isn't this America? I don't understand what you say. We don't like the G. Maybe you're speaking in code because of YouTube, but man, my brain is so tired, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly you're trying to say. So why shouldn't Americans be able to say we don't like the G going on in Gaza? Jenna, I see. All right. Okay, thank you. I just had to think about it a little bit. Isn't this America? Got it. Yeah, so quite interesting stuff. Let's open up the calls. If you guys want to call, say, wow, you call yourself Christian, but you seem to be endorsing the shooting gallery going on in Israel. Do you support the starvation too? Look, there's so much to that information there that we have no idea. I say we have no idea, but we have a media saying one thing, and then we have the truth, we have the IDF saying another, because the IDF, which quite frankly, I hold to the side of IDF and what they're reporting, because we're hearing a lot of mainstream media covering one aspect of the story as they always have done, right? And we're forgetting about the fact that they themselves, Hamas, came into the country and raped, murdered, and took hostages, right? All the while, Israel is trying to do everything to keep Gaza afloat by providing them proper water systems. And what do? They cut out Hamas. What they do is they start cutting out these water systems that are supplied for the Gazan people, or the people in Gaza, and they start making rockets out of them. And they start shooting them into Israel over the wall. You say by the time you get finished doing your research, there won't be any Palestinians left. That is not true. That is not true. So otherwise, I don't know if you're a Christian or not, but how could you be a Christian? If you are a Christian, how could you be a Christian who is, this is generalized to Christians, where we don't take into the account of what God's word says about Israel. That as long as the ordinances in the sky are here, the sun, the moon, and the stars, Israel will always be here. An incident occurred where I was arrested for not presenting identification while jogging in a public location. I am exploring avenues for remuneration. Not sure that word. Some people who were bad killed about 1,400 people. Does that justify killing over 56 people, including tens of thousands of babies, and destroying every hospital in university in Gaza? The problem is that we forget. A lot of people forget of what Hamas did and where they set up their shop. Where did they set up their shop? They set up their shop on locations of school grounds, university grounds, hospitals. They set up their main operation literally in an underground hospital. So when Hamas is putting the civilians, the Gazan civilians, the Palestinian civilians, or the Palestinians in harm's way, putting them as human shields, who's at fault here? Right? So Israel does everything that they possibly can to save any people of Gaza, any citizen of Gaza, in order that they can have the least amount of casualties. But the problem is Hamas continues to guard them in, blockade them in, and prevent them from leaving and fleeing. And so Israel will do all that they can. They'll supply their aid. I've done my research on this, guys. Plenty of research. And so yeah, I think you guys are being misled with what is actually happening with Gaza, because there is so much information that we can pull out on where they would do their I don't know, not bases, but where they would store weapons, they would store munitions, they would store rockets. And Israel did heavy amounts of surveillance in order to understand exactly where they can pinpoint these and effectively destroy them without harming any civilians and having casualties. But because there's a war going on, civilians will be a part of the casualty. Because Hamas, instead of taking the war directly and just fighting Israeli military, the IDF, they decided to take that war to the citizens. So how is that okay? How is that okay? Maybe I'll take one or two calls here and I'll get you guys' thoughts. Again, guys, be very respectful or I will click. I'm not going to tolerate it. If you guys don't follow the rules, if you guys don't want to call, all good. I'm going to put the number there and you guys feel free to call and feel free to just share your thoughts on all this with what's going on in LA. If you know anybody personally, let me just see if I can copy this. All right. Once I get the calls in, you'll get a screening. And after that point, I will hear what you have to say. So you guys let me know.
We have rules. We have laws. When people are murderers and rapists, they have consequences, and we are going to make sure that they face consequences. But those statements put out by Newsom and Karen Bass is absolutely ridiculous, because what we need is action right now. I mean, be people that are leaders for once. And let's not go back to 2020 when they were burning down the city of Minneapolis and you had people like Tim Walz encouraging it. I mean, this has been going on now by Democrat politicians for years, and that's why Donald Trump is in the White House. He's the only guy who fights for every single American. And I'm so proud to work for him. I can't believe it. I can't believe that these dummies in the Democrat Party are still around and getting elected.
Secretary Noem, you talk about consequences. One of the folks involved here was labor union leader David Huerta. Is he going to go to jail? And what kind of penalties could we expect to see for him? And is this the opportunity to send a statement to so-called leaders about what they do with respect to the actual rule of law?
You know, I don't know what the prosecution will be like, because obviously we've got judges out there that are weaponizing the judicial system as well. But yes, I believe that we will press charges against everybody that has broken a law last night, and we should do that, and we'll continue to do our ICE operations. We'll continue to make sure everybody in this country has the law equally applied to them. And these leaders, I don't think we need to make examples out of them. I think we need to make examples out of criminals. And if the leaders are criminals, then they need to face the consequences too. That's just the way this country works, and that's how freedom works. Freedom works when everybody has justice applied equally to them.
So speaking of enforcing the law, Kilmar Garcia has been returned to the United States to face criminal charges for trafficking illegal immigrants into the U.S. after Democrats hailed him as a hero. You know, it really is kind of amazing when you look at those images that we're watching from L.A., and then you think about this guy who has now been charged with human trafficking involving
Human trafficking, not child trafficking. Oh.
I
stand corrected.
Look at all of it through the lens of politics. It's so bad I don't know how Democrats, how they get out of this situation where they're defending this lawlessness, and in particular, defending a guy who has been charged with human trafficking of children.
It wasn't that he just did it. It's that a grand jury said it was his full-time job.
Yeah.
The guy spent his life trafficking people and children and selling them into slavery. So he's back. He's getting prosecuted. Then he'll be returning back to El Salvador. But the fact that we had Democrat politicians and Van Hollen down there defending him and standing beside him, buying him margaritas, when this guy trafficked children for a living and did it as his full-time job, is just, it shouldn't be shocking. It still is shocking to me that we have people like this that go so far out on a limb just to be a big frickin' deal in a political arena where they think that actually works. It doesn't work. It's not going to work anymore. The American people are sick of it.
But, you know, Secretary, you look at the defense of this guy, even going to El Salvador, a couple of politicians. Why? Why are they doubling down on protecting this illegal immigrant involved with so many horrific things? Why?
You know, I had this conversation with Van Hollen in committee, and he couldn't defend himself. He couldn't defend himself. He kept saying, oh, you didn't give him judicial process. You didn't give him the right to have due process. Absolutely, we did. And you went down there anyways and went down there and stood beside someone who's a wife beater.
Such a political
and said that you
image
support
there.
that guy. I said, when's the last time you did that for one of your constituents, one of the people who live in your state and actually need your help? When's the last time you fought that hard for those individuals? Instead, because you thought it was political and it would work for you, you went and stood by a criminal, a guy who has abused children his entire life. So the more we educate the American public on what these Democrats are doing, the more they realize they've just abandoned this country. Last night they were burning American flags in the streets in L.A.
That is wild. We saw that at the beginning of there was a protest going on early on in the Trump administration. I think at the start of the Trump administration, where there was a huge LA riot, people blocking the freeway, and we saw people burning flags, American flags. That I go back to that every time and just think there is no help for your case in that regard. There really isn't. quite wild.
And LA let that happen. They were taking American flags and lighting them on fire. Those are not people who love America and people who want justice for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with Kristi Noem there.
Those are people who are trying to perpetuate violence to promote an agenda. And I saw this in 2020 all across this country where they used fear to control people.
Yep.
And that's what Democrats are doing. They're trying to use fear to control people. And our law enforcement officers, every day when they go to work, they're concerned about losing their lives.
2 minutes
Their
left to call,
moms and
guys.
children and wives are worried about losing their family members, and it's not right. So the fact we have a president that's in the White House that's going to make sure that this isn't going to go on. Every single person that throws a rock or a bottle where we have jurisdiction, they're going to get arrested. They just are. Every single weapon assault, anytime you write something like kill ICE, you are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent that we have the ability to do that and bring consequences down.
And they're obviously also trying to slow down, halt deportations. Now, Abrego Garcia, if he's convicted, he'll serve his time and then he'll be deported. Is there any world in which what's happening now on the streets of places like LA slows down in any way the deportations that the Trump administration is pursuing?
What's what they're trying to do? They're trying to slow us down and scare people and officers from doing their jobs. And they're trying to use the judicial courts, ones that they think are more friendly or activist, to slow us down from being able to do the job that the American people want us to do. We're going to do things right. We're going to run our cases, make sure that everybody is afforded the ability that they have to go through a legal process, but we're going to get them out of this country because Joe Biden allowed an invasion to happen.
That is very important that she just said right there. So let me just go back a little bit. She said, with regards to what's going on with getting people deported,
that everybody is afforded the ability that they have to go through a legal process, but we're going to get them.
So they're going to give them the ability of what they can afford, as far as not afford as in monetary wise, but to give them the process in order to really get this situation all handled so that everybody's given that fair chance.
Out of this country because Joe Biden allowed an invasion to happen of dangerous criminals, and the laws in this country matter. All we are doing is enforcing the law. If these
That is very important, key to understand there.
protesters want the laws to change, go talk to your senator, go
There you
talk
go.
to your congressman, because we are following the law. If you want the law to change, go talk to Congress, and they should change the law.
That is very important to understand there. So otherwise, what are you guys' thoughts? Final thoughts. We're going to wrap it up here in a bit, but otherwise there is just so much that has just happened in the last couple of hours, and we're going to see all of this unfold within the next couple of days, and whether this progresses and becomes worse or whether this dies down and people come to their senses and understand that the violence that is happening in LA shouldn't happen because of what they're trying to stand for. What they're trying to stand for may be right in the sense that, you know, people that have come here to actually become a citizen and do things right, you still came here illegally. So I think it's important to do things the right way. And there's many instances where we can just take a look at, you know, special, I don't know. We have to look at everything and really analyze this with wisdom. I just think back to Solomon, King Solomon in the Bible, where he asked God for wisdom to lead his people. And ultimately we need a leader like that in order to ask for wisdom, be humble enough to ask for wisdom in order to lead the people of America and do what is right and to bring God's justice into our economy, because that's what we need. That's what we need. We need the justice of God in order to do good. To do good. So do you think ICE will harm the Democrat vote in California? Maybe that and a mixture of losing second-class citizens to do their cheap jobs. I don't know. Do I think ICE will harm the Democrat vote in America? I don't know. People are not looking at ICE favorably. Nobody really ever has, actually, if we ever think about it. I mean, there's, I guess, the more of, I say the for sure the Democrats have, it's always been put out there in the media about ICE. And they're essentially just there to uphold the laws with regards to immigration. And I mean, that's what it is. And otherwise, they haven't grown as an government organization. They've been the same for over 26 years. So I think it's about 60,000 ICE workers, maybe less, maybe a little more. And yeah, so there's all that stuff that we just have to think about and think through. And I really understand everything with what's going on. So guys, I appreciate you so much for being here. Thanks for joining me. Nobody called in today. I was kind of waiting to hear some of you guys on some of this information, but otherwise next time I'll get you guys in and we'll chat again. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here. If you guys like what you guys heard, like what you guys saw, please subscribe, like, and do all that fun stuff. I really appreciate you guys for joining me for this podcast. We'll keep following with what's going on closely, and hopefully I can get you some good news coverage with everything that's going on. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Talk soon. Peace.